Hey there, class. My name is Aaron Chandler. I'm one of you guys' classmates in Government 636. So I was assigned Chapter 9. So on Chapter 9, it was actually basically the entire chapter is about two different studies. So these two studies were conducted basically to try to figure out the correlation between um, the polarization of the parties and the legislative results that come from the different amounts of people in each party, whether you have more Republicans or more Democrats, or if it would be better to have a completely wiped out party, more or less, or would it to be more productive. So um, the first study that they conducted was about whether it would be better to have the more bipartisan makeup of the Congress. So I wanted to kind of show one thing before I talked about that because it was super interesting to me. When we look at today's political arena, we notice that the Congress is super divided. Each party is in its respective corner, doesn't agree with the other party, doesn't want to participate. I liken it to the impeachment vote, or to the tax cuts for the rich vote, or to a lot of the things that have been going on the past couple of years, where everything is among party voted on party lines, where you see each party, we do our own thing over here, the other party's doing their own thing over there, and they're constantly clashing. Where is that a new phenomenon? Is that something that happened under Obama and it's just gotten worse, or is that something that has been going on for a long time? And in this book, and I really wanted to show this to you guys. If you look right here, it actually has been going on for a long time. So right in here is about the 1970s, and you see, the polarization continue to grow all the way up. So this chart is the polarization by Congress's two-chamber average. So it's basically showing you how the polarization, the split has been getting worse and worse since about the 1970s, all the way to now. So moving back to the first study. Basically, the first study showed that, okay, here it is. The first study showed that if you have a government that's more diverse in idea and in thought, it looks like, based on their study of the numbers, that they are more legislatively productive. At the conclusion of the study, it says, we propose that such conditions of moderation aid productivity because they help foster serious negotiation and compromise on the controversial issues of the day. So basically, the way that the study was conducted, it had all of these different Congress that had been elected over the years, and what they ended up doing was they looked at, okay, how much did they legislate? How many bills got stalled? How many bills did they work together on and do some give and take? And it looks like, based on the numbers, the ones where there were a more bipartisan ideology of elected officials, they had a situation where, okay, you guys want this, we want this. We've got to figure something out. And they ended up passing more bills. Wherein, if you look at the example of the deadlocked Congress, which is right here, it says here, moreover, the deadlock was particularly pernicious because the bitterness it generated infused various pure, divided, and ununited party governments of the area, undercutting their productivity. So basically, what this study was talking about was basically when the government is completely, you've got one party that is 100% Republican, or one house, the House of the Congress is completely Republican or completely Democratic. The other party that's within that house is completely unwilling to work with the other party. So they're a lot more unproductive. So when it comes to my personal interpretation or criticism of that, I actually kind of agree and disagree. I think that, to be honest, and this might sound kind of crazy, but the current political world is a different world than a lot of the political eras that this book studied. We didn't have a lot of the things that we have now. So when you look at the fact that the parties don't work together, And if you look at the Democratic Party, there's a civil war going on within the Democratic Party right now, where you have the progressive wing of the party and the centrist wing of the party fighting each other much harder than the Democrats fight the Republicans. So, when you look at the differences in the parties, I do think it's different. Because, when you're saying, oh, well, if the parties are made up of more diversity of thought, then yes, back in let's take the war in Iraq, for example. The Republicans were in charge, but the Democrats went along with the war. Or if you look at the Bush tax cuts and things like that, the Democrats went along with it. It was a more bipartisan era. Wherein you look at now, these tax cuts that President Trump passed about 2 years ago or so, they were completely on party lines. The Democrats had nothing to do with that. They did not want it. They did not help with it. They didn't try to negotiate. Well, if you guys, and at the same time, if you look at what the Republicans did at the time, it was the same thing. So there's no reality where Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or any of the Republicans in office are going to say, okay, well, we want the tax cuts for the corporations and the rich. So maybe we could give them DACA, or we could give them some other policy goal that the Democrats want. Ted Cruz is never going to come out and say that. And the majority of the Republican Party is not going to say that. But that's the political reality that we live in today, where neither party is more or less willing to negotiate. With the government shutdown, with the record, shut down for a month, as a government employee, I remember that time, and it was awful. Because President Trump wanted his border wall, and the Democrats didn't want to have the border wall, and it was a giant fight. Whichever side you fall on in these issues is irrelevant to the reality of the unbipartisan nature of our government. So I think that having these diversity of thoughts would have made sense back then. But if you look at the way that the government operates now, there is no bipartisan consensus. It just isn't. And usually when we look at what ends up happening, the Democrats cave. So Donald Trump got his Space Force. Donald Trump got his tax cuts. He got his national emergency. He was acquitted on his impeachment. He has now, he got his rebooted NAFTA. This isn't to say those positions were right or wrong. This is to say, you look at the fact that the Democrats control one of the houses, and they want DACA. They did not get DACA. They did not want to do the tax cuts. They did them. The Democrats wanted paid family leave for everyone. They only got them for the federal employees. The President Trump was attempting to block federal employee wage increases. In my opinion, I don't see the government as working together in this political era. I think that a lot of the people within the government, within the Congress, are going to have to retire and institute a more, a newer and more bipartisan version, or not version, but a more bipartisan Congress in order to do so. And it's going to take a different type of leadership from both parties in order to be bipartisan, because no one can say that Mitch McConnell is doing everything he can to work with the Democrats. I don't think even, his supporters would say that. But at the same time, Democrats cave regularly. I mean, they do. That's just what they do. So these are my thoughts. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let me know. But overall, Chapter 9 was all about the study between whether the government should be is it more productive when it's one party has major control of both houses of Congress, or is it more productive when you have a more bipartisan makeup of the body? So let me know what you guys think. Y'all be blessed.